One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 99 today. And I am here with my guest, Angela McArdle. She is the head of the Libertarian Party People's Chair. This is the second time she's coming on my show today. And hello, Angela. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on.
It was a good discussion we had last time. I had a lot of fun, talking to you about libertarian politics and your job. So, Angela, what have you been up to today? Anything much?
Today, just catching up on Libertarian Party business, wrapping up loose ends from the aftermath of the rally that took a lot of my attention and energy.
It was a very, very good rally. What's any news you've heard? The last few days from the Libertarian Party. Any news, like any important news that we should be aware of?
Well, politically in the United States, there's a couple of war-related resolutions that are coming out of our House of Representatives. So they're not being passed into law yet, but they've been essentially proposed by Republican Representative Matt Gaetz out of Florida. One is to end funding to the war in Ukraine, and one is called a War Powers Resolution to essentially pull our troops and resources out of Syria, and if not, to basically make a formal declaration of war, because that never happened. So those are things happening in American politics, and the Libertarian Party is voting right now to officially endorse both of them. So hopefully that vote will be wrapped in a couple of days, and we'll endorse them both.
That'll be fantastic. Yeah, I really think the United States, should be getting out of Syria. I mean, Donald Trump said he was going to do that, and well, he didn't. I was watching a brilliant documentary, Angela, have you heard of someone called Abby Martin?
I don't think so.
She does this brilliant. I mean, you probably may disagree with her political opinions. Like she is progressive, but she's not like I would say. I don't know much about her political views, but I just know she did it's called the Empire Files, and it's a brilliant video on the Trump-Syria deception. It basically said that Trump, was supposed to be getting out of Syria, but in fact he didn't want to get out of Syria, and he actually bombed Syria and Somalia, more than Obama, more than Clinton did, and it's just absolutely insane.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to check that out. I mean, what I've found recently is that I get along really well with people from different political backgrounds, as long as we're focused on something we agree on. And lately that's been the anti-war rally, and getting the United States military out of everyone else's business. So happy to work with people from different political backgrounds on that issue.
So Angela, tell me about this rally that very famous, a lot of people saw, against the war machine. So who came up with the idea of it, and how long did it take you to set up, and how did you manage to get the funding to be able to pull it off?
So that's a lot. Let me answer all of those questions. Let's unpack them a little bit slowly, one by one. So I started working on this, I think, in early November with Nick Brana, the chair of the People's Party, and a handful of other activists, from the Libertarian Party, from the People's Party, and just a random assortment of people. A couple of Green Party members and some people who volunteer with Action for Assange, which is a group that's dedicated to getting Julian Assange cleared of charges and free. So we were kind of just thinking, what's the next thing we could do? What do we agree on, right? What do we want to do? We hate war, so let's start working together on war. So that's how that came about. It was pretty disorganized at first, and we started having once a week calls and getting more and more organized until we realized in early December, whoa, this is going to be a real thing. It's going to be maybe huge.
Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of, how long, with the arranging, how did you manage, to get it all together to set the event up, and how did you get the funding for it?
So we changed the date a couple of times, trying to figure out, what's the best day to do this? How much time do we need to put it together? At first, I didn't realize how much work it was going to be. And I think what really kind of showed us this is a very serious effort, it's going to take a lot of work, was when we started meeting with the National Parks Service. It's basically the government organization that controls the Lincoln Memorial and that whole area in DC. And they started telling us everything that we needed to pull the rally off. So it's like, you got to have this number of porta potties. You got to have a medical tent in case someone passes out. You got to have an ambulance. You got to have this many employees there, security, insurance. And then I was like, well, this is not just going to be a couple hundred people who show up and wave signs. This is, if we put all this money in and all this organizing work, like, we got to get thousands of people there. So at that point, we started bringing on more people to help us. Like, this person handle logistics, this person handle transportation. Oh, we got to bus people in because all the people who live in DC, well, they're all swamp creatures essentially. They all work for the government, and they're not going to show up at our rally. So who are we going to get here? And then how are we going to pay for it all? So we did crowdfunding through a platform called Give Butter, which is like GoFundMe.
Oh, that's a funny name for a.
It is. It is. They're like GoFundMe, except they won't cancel you if they don't like your cause. Much better. So I highly recommend Give Butter. And then we had a volunteer from the Libertarian Party do the website who does a beautiful job. He did all the Mises Caucus work too. His name is Christian. Once we started seeing fundraising coming in, we were like, oh, this is like, shit's getting real. This is serious. And it just grew from there, every week, bit by bit. Nick Brana helped me get in touch with a lot of speakers. We started adding them. They were excited. They started promoting it. It's kind of every week I was like, biting my nails thinking, is this going to happen? Are we pulling this off? Is it about to collapse? Is it going to blow up in my face? And it just, every week we made it. And then the fundraising sort of started to go up, 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 up right at the end. And I was like, because it was expensive to put this event together.
Oh, I can imagine. What speakers, like, because I do know that Ron Paul was there, Kim from who used to work with The Hill from there, Jackson Hickle was there, also other people. What speaker do you wish you would have been able to get there that wasn't able to come?
Oh, man. Oh, Roger Waters. He sent in a video for us, and he was really supportive, but he was just out of the country. We talked with him about that. And Stella Assange, we invited her, but also she was out of the country. Julian Assange's brother is doing a documentary screening tour of the United States right now, so everybody should look into that. He's going to be in Houston and Dallas next week. But those were the people we wanted to get there. We had a ton of really great speakers, but you always want to add more. And we did. We added more and more and more until we were like, oh, we can't add anyone else because we're out of time.
What would you say, like, when you were on that podium, and I think it was Ron Paul who was next to you, when you were like on that podium speaking and like you were holding your baby, it was a very, very adorable photo where you're holding your baby. Like, when seeing, the tears come out of your eyes when you're holding your baby and just knowing that people's there, like seeing that, holding the baby and like seeing these people, against this great evil called the military industrial complex and the Federal Reserve, and especially with the global banking system for so long there's cropped as well. When you hold your baby and see those people, they're protesting all together, whether they're, leftists, right wing or libertarians. How did that make you feel, holding your baby and just, knowing that there are people? Did it give you hope for humanity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really like a defining moment for the anti-war movement. This was the rebirth of the anti-war movement. I think it can't be understated. It can't be overstated, like how powerful this event was. But that moment where I was on stage with baby Arthur, it's like represented like a multi-generational involvement in this effort, because Ron Paul, who is like the leader, the vanguard of this movement, taking the stage as the headlining speaker after Dennis Kucinich and Tulsi Gabbard, so you got three members of Congress, former members of Congress, who I believe have all three run for president too. So that's really interesting. And, Dennis and Ron Paul are older, and then Tulsi's in the middle, and she's maybe more of my generation. And then I'm holding, like little Arthur, and then you've got the generation that is to come, and the crowd is everything in between. It felt pretty profound. It felt like we're all united in this, and I feel that I have a duty to carry the torch, that Ron Paul is sort of passing it on to the younger generation, and then it'll be my duty to keep it lit until I can pass it to the generation that comes after me, maybe Arthur's generation. People who are just babies right now, like they want a peaceful world too. So it was pretty amazing.
With like all the volunteers that were there and all the fans that came up to speak to you, what would you say like was your favorite story that you heard from any of the fans, that told you about their personal experience, whether they were a veteran, whether they were someone, who has been struggling with inflation, who had been stuffed over by the globalist system? What was your favorite story that you heard from that really touched your heart, like from the fans and stuff that would like also who thanked you for the movement too?
There was one person who came who was like clearly very disabled, and he was super excited to be there. And I thought, like, how much work did he have to go through to get here? Like that really stuck with me. And there was just like another random person at a certain point. I had to walk down to the bottom of the event to signal to one of the speakers, like, you're going over, like, wrap it up. And as I walked back up, just a random stranger high-fived me, a guy, and was like, thank you so much for putting this on. And I could tell like how much it, how serious he was and how much it meant to him. And I think that meant a lot to me too. Talking with people who flew in from other parts of the country. There were people who flew in from Europe. Just the fact that anybody would go to that much trouble to attend, like, it really, really meant a lot to me.
Did you have anyone from like New Zealand or Australia there, or no?
I don't know about New Zealand or Australia, but there were a couple of people from Europe.
You should. One thing is, so when you look at this against the War Machine rally, so you mentioned that the anti-war movement has gone a bit downhill and is not as good as it used to be. Like, what went wrong?
Oh, yeah.
What went wrong with the anti-war movement? How did it go? Like, because when you had the protest against the Iraqi war, that was
Yep.
big back in 2003. Whether it was in America or Britain, one time in London they had a protest there which had 1 million people. What's been the biggest problem with the anti-war protesting, and how come it just went downhill? And like with the Ukraine war, like what is one of the issues that it's had? Do you think that like COVID and like what we've seen in the
Yeah.
last few years have really woken it up?
So the reason the anti-war movement died is because it was a partisan effort led by Democrats. It was a Democrat Party issue in the United States, specifically in the early 2000s. And when Barack Obama was elected to office in 2008, that killed it. Ooh, the anti-war movement just disappeared. Barack Obama continued to kill people with drone strikes, and Democrats were too embarrassed to say anything. And so they just never did. So the difference here is that this is not a partisan effort. This is a left-right independent coalition. You've got the Libertarian Party on one hand as an organizer. You got the People's Party on the other hand. They're like a working class populist group that is, like, to the left on economics. They're very good on mandates. They oppose lockdowns. They oppose vaccine mandates. They are pro free speech, and I believe they're pro Second Amendment. So to their credit, like, they're a very good group for us to work with, because there's actually quite a bit of overlap in things we agree on. And then we made sure to reach out to people from the Green Party and from other like small kind of like fringe third parties and people who are just politically homeless. We wanted to make this a movement that everyone could be a part of. And I think that on the heels of the pandemic and lockdowns in the United States and the fallout of all of the vaccine drama, now people are really questioning it. People are questioning everything. If it's coming from government, they're like, wait. I think I smell bullshit. They're trying to suss things out. And so they're much more likely to be skeptical of this war because our government in the United States is pushing it so aggressively.
When you like talk about the political party, was like the political parties, like groups that were there in the rally, who would you say, like, out of all the political parties who were there, that you had the biggest like beliefs, the most disagreements, you like what you would say had the biggest disagreements with you, and one that you struggled to get along with, but but one that actually came to the rally and actually agreed with you?
I saw people at the rally who were wearing BLM shirts. So that's not necessarily a political party, but it's a political movement. So, like we don't really we don't champion the Black Lives Matter movement in the strictest sense, like with the organization. And so to see those people there with us in solidarity, not just putting up with us, right? Because it's the attitude there, like I can't stress enough. It was not a bunch of different groups of people who could barely stand each other. Everybody was united and the vibe was great. It was amazing. The after party was awesome. Like we all got along so well, and it was like there was so much camaraderie and love between us all. It didn't matter if you had on a BLM shirt, it didn't matter if you had on a taxation as theft shirt. Like we were all just like so grateful for each other and happy to be there.
There were some allegations that I saw that you like. There was some. So lately, from what I've seen, Angela, is there's been, which I think is a load of rubbish. There are some allegations that I've seen Twitter posts, like from trolls and from left wing and like from people who are libertarians, but they say they don't want to be a part of the libertarian movement because of this. You've probably had, fallout with people. With those people who say, for example, the people who say that there were Russian flags there, that there were Soviet flags, and they were saying to you like, "Oh, Angela McArdle's supporting a terrorist group. She's a Kremlin supervisor. They're all Russian agents." What is your answer to those allegations towards you? And what do you think of those people, saying that these guys who were at the rally, waving, the Soviet flag and waving the Russian flag? What is your opinion towards that? And those people accusing you of being a Putin puppet and associate with the Kremlin?
Yeah. So there were, I counted a total of 4 Russian flags there in a sea of 3,000 people. I do remember seeing 1 Soviet flag there, 1 hammer and sickle flag there. I'm not able to. First of all, it's a national monument. It's federal property. Even though I was able to gate off the speaker area and like a green room, like a security area, I wasn't able to actually check admission or kick people out. Anybody is entitled to show up there so long as they're not being violent or engaging in destruction of property. We're lucky that only 4 people showed up with Russian flags. It's always going to happen. We did have people with American flags trying to move and with other signs to kind of get in front of them for press, but it's kind of an impossible situation. Some people suggested we put up a backdrop. We can do that in the future. I'm open to that. But what that also does is that kills the ability of the hundreds of people who were behind us from being close and watching from that angle. So at a certain point, it's like, do I care about the optics of 2 flags that were behind me for a matter of maybe 2 minutes? Do I care about that more than being accessible to the hundreds of people who were behind me who flew there and wanted to get close? I don't know that I can rightfully prioritize one bad PR moment, especially when that bad PR moment is pushed by people within my organization who are too envious and jealous to be excited for the success of the organization. They would rather screen cap that on YouTube and pass it out and try to tear us down. I think we have a situation in the Libertarian Party, and it's not. This happens to many organizations, especially church groups, nonprofits, and political organizations. But this is very much like the tale of Solomon and the 2 women fighting over the baby. When they bring the baby to King Solomon and they say, "Oh, he's mine. No, he's mine." And King Solomon says, "Well, I'll cut him down the middle." One woman screams in terror, "Please don't do that." And the other woman is like, "Good, go ahead. If I can't have him, no one can." These people are they have murderous intent towards the Libertarian Party. We've removed them from positions of leadership, and they would rather murder the party than see it successful under my leadership or someone else's. And that's really unfortunate. But that's a soul searching, inward, spiritual mental health problem. There's only so much I can do for people who are that sick.
Were there any counter protesters there at that rally or no?
I mean, if you want to count the Russian flag people, There were maybe 5 or 6. There was one person who was like an agent provocateur. Now we had a security detail the entire time. So we had paid professional security, and then a team of people with walkie-talkies who were kind of like in between the organizers and security. So we were watching the crowd very closely. There was one guy going around placing bricks, rocks, sticks, trying to incite something. We were able to chase him off. But
Oh,
one
that would have been
individual,
a bit crazy.
yeah,
That would have been
yeah.
insane, man. Angela, I saw on Twitter, these people were making really disgusting, comments about you. And like when you were like putting your baby and hugging him, there was this disgusting, people, saying that, oh, just like that you deserve to be punched. And I'm like, what? That was
I can't imagine.
disgusting. It's
I
it's
mean,
just absolutely ridiculous.
it's like, so here's my position, right? I had a baby. Arthur is he's just one day shy of 3 months old. I had a baby while I was planning this rally, and he attended probably like almost as many organizing calls as I did, right? Like I'm feeding him while I'm on the calls. I usually have my screen turned off because I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm breastfeeding my baby. Like he's making a little bit of noise. If he's really noisy, I'll hand him off to dad. But I try to run my life like very holistically. Like, so motherhood is a part of my life. I'm still working and I'm integrating both. And so he was backstage the whole time. And so I was running back in between introducing speakers. I'm feeding him, I'm checking in on him. Dad's watching him, but dad wants to have a good time at the rally too. So I'm like, why don't you go out and watch a couple speakers? I'm not introducing anyone for 20 minutes. I'll rock him, I'll watch him. The other ladies were like, oh, baby, so that's what was going on. And then at the end, I was like, he's been kind of in the tent, wrapped up in a blanket the whole time. Like, he needs some fresh air. And it's my choice that I decide I'm going to walk around holding my child, because this is like a huge part of my life now. And for a party with critics who say we don't do enough outreach to women, they sure do have contempt for the actual state of womanhood, because this is what women need to see when they're viewing the Libertarian Party. It's a woman in leadership who has managed to integrate her role as a mother into her position in the party, and she's like, in a very casual way, being very public about it. Like, I didn't hang like a giant political sign on my baby. I didn't make a speech about him. I'm just doing my thing, and he's a part of my life, and people can see that. And I think that should have been, one of the most beautiful takeaways from this rally is, it was genuinely family friendly, because my small child was a part of it.
What would you say was your favorite speech in the whole rally? Who made the best speech, you reckon?
Oh man, it's really close. It's really tight. Let me just, okay. So Max Blumenthal started us off really well. I love that, and I appreciate the high energy that he brought. Gerald Celente really blew me away because I didn't expect how hilarious he would be. So he is great. Everybody needs to look up Gerald Celente. Dennis Kucinich was so incredibly fiery. Like, I did not know that man would bring so much like fire and intensity to his speech. I loved it. Tulsi Gabbard's speech was really good. I know that a lot of people were skeptical and kind of saying, we'll see how it goes, wondering if it was going to be too watered down or feel like disingenuous. It was just really, really good. Probably my favorite, just barely above the others, is going to be Ron Paul, because he has such a special place in my heart, and it meant so much to me for him to be there. And just to see him on stage and to see him talk about how important it was to end the Fed to a group of people who are very economically diverse, and to see that message be so well received, I thought was like really incredible. And you've got to be a very skilled messenger to pull that off.
He did do very good. What would you say was your favorite, moment of the speech? Like the favorite thing he said in that moment?
I think talking about ending the Federal Reserve and how we've got to end the Fed because that's what's supplying all of these wars and making them possible.
Mm-hmm. The biggest enemy, of course, So, with the Against the War Machine rally, so is there going to be one next year? And what are you hoping to achieve in the future of it next? And what
So
guests would you like to bring for next year?
We are definitely going to do another rally. We're looking at September. We'll see. We're working with a couple of other groups who want to collaborate with us. So I'm going to wait to get their feedback before I do any official announcements. But potentially September, which is great. We are going to be doing something in between. We are going to be issuing a call to action to remind people to go lobby, protest, rally, set up meetings at your local congressman's office. So they have, their office in DC, and then they have their local offices as well. So we need to keep the pressure on. Right now, we're really emphasizing support for these two bills from Matt Gaetz in Florida. Call your congressperson and tell them like they need to vote yes on these things. Let's throw a lot of support behind that. And then, I am considering targeting some races of people who are aggressively in support of the war and trying to primary them out. And that's something that the Libertarian Party can definitely do. So I'm excited to work on that.
So speaking of that, Angela, there's actually one thing that I know we're going a bit off topic here, but there's one thing I want to talk about, which is quite interesting. So as we all know right now, like the Republican Party is having a lot of division. And as we all know, you and me, we're not a fan of Trump. Trump, broke his promises a lot, in his first few years in office. When you do more research, you'll find out, like a lot of people should.
Yep.
Did you see the video where Laura Loomer was outside having a Trump she was outside a library. She was outside a book signing that Ron DeSantis was at. This was like a few days ago, and she had a Trump flag. She had a Trump sign on. Did you see that video?
I don't think so.
So just to explain, she basically had a Trump sign outside with some people, and she was protesting outside DeSantis book meeting, and then all of a sudden the security guard came out, and then he said to the Trump fans, "You guys can't be here. DeSantis doesn't want you to be here," and stuff. And he even said he was a Trump fan. And it was just like Laura Loomer's like, "Why? We're allowed to be here. We can be here." And then the guy's like, "No, you're not allowed to be here." And when Laura Loomer exposed that, now look, whether you like Laura Loomer or not, she does a great job with exposing a lot of the elitists, and she did a good job. She really does a good job on exposing Ron DeSantis. And it's funny because she did a really good, some people have really done a good job, exposing Ron DeSantis, for apparently he's going to be writing there's a bill. If you didn't know this, there's a bill that he's writing where it's going to be, it's in the process right now. It's not passed yet, but it's a bill where you're going to have to pay in order to blog about Ron DeSantis. And it's funny because Ron DeSantis says he's for freedom of speech, but then he blocks the Trump supporters doing this. And you have billionaires like Ken Griffin and other billionaires, Globus billionaires, backing DeSantis. And, there's also another brilliant video by Abby Martin from the Empire Files, on this brilliant interview by this guy who was in Guatemala Bay and apparently accused, Ron DeSantis of war crimes, of him being an officer and war, torture, torturing people, in Guantanamo Bay war crimes. And it's absolutely insane. When you look at that, all of those people who champion Ron DeSantis, and then he says he's, against war, he's against this, but yet, he also, by the way, supported, the war in Iraq. He also, was really pushing towards funding with Ukraine and also agreed, with the Syria thing, What is your opinion on that Ron DeSantis and hearing about what happened to Laura Loomer and the whole thing, and do you think DeSantis would be just as bad as Trump? And what do you think about this whole thing where he's being lined up to be the next big thing?
Man, it's really it's hard to pick. It's like a pick your poison. I would have said, even just I would have said, I think Donald Trump would be a better president than Ron DeSantis. But then Donald Trump had to go and say something insane, like he was going to put all drug dealers to death. It's so out there. You never know what you're going to get from Donald Trump based on
and
how
also sorry for interrupting you, Angela. And also just to point out, Trump, also just, I was doing some research on it, and just, Donald Trump said, was against the war in Iraq and Iran, but then yet he actually, in a speech, he said that if like Iran went anywhere near their military bases or like Iran ships, he said he would bomb the shit out of, not bomb the shit out, but he would shoot them. And also he really wanted to go to war with Iran. He wanted to take their oil, and he never took the troops out of Syria. He never did. He also continued the bombing in Somalia. And do you know a fun fact? He also increased the military budget even more than Obama did.
Yeah, his claim to fame is that he didn't start any new wars. I mean, that's a really low bar, but okay. So we know how he did, right? Which it could have been worse. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. I think that DeSantis would be much more pro-war, which is not good. He'd be much better on lockdowns and, civil issues. But I don't think that he'd be good on foreign policy. I think his foreign policy would be terrible. And I think that he would probably surround himself with people who are even worse than Donald Trump did. And Donald Trump did not do a good job. Like, he picked some really bad advisors. But I think that DeSantis would do that and be open about it and pick guys who are worse. And I think it would be intentional as opposed to a screw up. I think that DeSantis is totally okay with sending tons of money to Israel too. And I don't think the United States should be in the business of sending money to other countries, like, at all.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Angela, I got a question for you. What is the 51st state of the United States, the 52nd, the 53rd, and the 54th?
Oh man, that's is this a riddle? I mean, it would be, Puerto Rico would be one, Guam would be one. Or, I mean, unless you're talking about in dollars, I mean, then it would be, Israel. I'm not really sure.
For me, I would say Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine. Yeah. And the 54th, I don't know, maybe Saudi Arabia, 45th.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
One thing is, I will tell you, Angela, that if, China does go to war with Taiwan, even though I think the United States will find a way to blame China over the war and start a war because the military-industrial complex wants that. I think that if Taiwan does go to war with China, I have a feeling Donald Trump or DeSantis are going to do the same thing that Biden is going to do with Ukraine. I don't think they're going to do it as much, but I do think they're probably going to do the thing, and they're going to be like, "Oh, the war in Taiwan is going to be an absolutely disaster. We're going to need to bring military funding into it. Give us, And it's going to be funny because all those Trump supporters who said Biden was doing this, Biden was giving so much money to Ukraine, which is outrageous. But then if there's a war between China and Taiwan, of course, I have a feeling that Trump is going to do the same thing because Trump, he's in bed. He's not in bed with the elites, but he is connected to the Federal Reserve, and it's just the same thing DeSantis.
You're right. You're right. I've really wanted to do some anti-war activism with people on the right, and this is one of the things that's held me back, is the position that most conservatives have on China. So if there's any conservatives out there who hear this and you're like, no, I don't want war with China, and I know a really popular guy who agrees with me, let me know. I mean, I want to do that outreach with people on the right, but I can't be doing an anti-war rally with people who want to go to war with China over Taiwan. It's sucky situation.
Angela, what would you say? What do you find more frustrating? Do you find it more frustrating to debate a leftist or a rightist?
Oh, like people on the right. People on the right for sure. I mean, people on the left, I know what they're going to say. I know why they're going to say it. I know that they're arguing usually from the seat of their emotions. And so it's just easier to take that apart and to take it less personally too. Even the ones that really hate my guts, that's okay. Like, I have the whole thing figured out. But arguing with conservatives, I think, is much more frustrating because they generally present themselves as more rational. And so when they come to these really bad positions on, like, oh, we got to have, like, we got to be careful with China. We might go to war with them. What if they go to war with us? And, we have to tariffs and embargoes and all that. That just blows my mind, because I'm like, I thought you guys were for free markets. Like, you don't want high taxes. You said, like, you oppose the war in Ukraine. So what? Yeah, very frustrating there.
And the biggest myth of them all: conservatives want small government. They used to, but not anymore. They've definitely lost that ability. I mean, in fact,
No, I
there's
mean,
actually some evidence that came out that they actually made the government even bigger. I mean, look, Donald Trump increased,
oh my
the
gosh.
the
Yeah,
the the, the president debt. I mean, you can argue COVID did have more of an impact. I mean, you can cut
it
him
did.
some slack, but he made the debt even bigger, and he increased the military budget by $1 trillion more. So it's
Yep.
like to say he was anti-war. It's just,
And
oh my god.
and so now the other insane thing that Donald Trump is talking about is getting the federal government involved in disciplining children. So, there's it's
What?
all over Twitter. It's all over Twitter, the kids who fight in school to the point that it's incredibly violent. It's an awful thing to see. Something's got to be done. Save the children, right? That's how it always starts. And so Donald Trump was like, well, we'll just get the federal government involved. For crying out loud, like, please, that is literally the last thing we need. Even if kids need to go to jail for beating up their teacher or beating up their classmate, not the federal government. Like, that should never be the first thing you jump
Like,
to.
what do they know about it? They
Yeah,
haven't done anything at all for education. If you
no.
think about it, the federal government is already well, maybe not involved, but they're already controlling most of the education system, especially with the Fed. And
Yep.
you know what, Angela, I got another question for you here. Yesterday, I sent a message to someone. He's a conservative and he's a Trump supporter, and he's like, I'm not going to mention, like, he was in the Marines, like military. He wasn't fully in it, and I was like criticizing. I sent him a thread I did, on Ron DeSantis, and it's like criticizing him about the things he did wrong, the war crimes, the corruption he did, especially with him, Laura Loomer. And when I did that, he just got so triggered. He's saying, "Oh, you're a libertarian, you're a social justice warrior," and it's even frustrating when you talk to like conservatives about police brutality, when like I said, police are not the problem. Not all police officers are the problem, but then you talk to them about for example, when you have police officers beating up a black guy or beating up a white person uncovertly, but then some conservatives are like, oh, it's because he was asking for it. It's just like, oh, what
Yeah,
would
it's
you
so
say
gross.
it is the most frustrating debate you ever had with a Trump supporter or DeSantis supporter?
That's a good one. The most frustrating debate I've had with a Trump supporter. I mean, borders is up there. Drug war. Definitely drug war. Definitely drug war. So many of them are just so like Donald Trump saying he wanted the death penalty for drug dealers. And then people saying that we've got to have it, like because of fentanyl. Fentanyl on the street is already illegal. Like, no libertarian is saying it's not a problem that people are dying from drug overdoses. It's a problem. Please don't go out and shoot up heroin or fentanyl. Like, don't do that. Bad for your life. But death penalty for drug dealers it's not going to work. It's already illegal, and the war on drugs has failed. Drugs won the war, and the fact that they want to just like escalate it is like enraging.
Angela, it's funny how conservatives say that, but let's not forget Ronald Reagan was the one, if you think about it, who pretty much, with the CIA started the
Yep,
war on drugs. Look how
totally.
much damage that's done. It's just insane.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Angela, so also speaking of that, what is your opinion? Like, I haven't heard you talk about that this much on your Twitter, but you probably, been focusing more on the anti-rally. What was your opinion on like the whole East Palestine, Ohio situation, which is an absolute disaster? God bless
Yep.
the families. I hope they're okay. Which is the worst environmental history in the United States, worst environmental disaster in United States history. A lot of people, getting skin rashes. You have a lot of people, dying. A lot of animals, dying. Sorry, I'm just trying to speak as fast as I can. And you see that knowing it could have been prevented. And what is your opinion to like Pete Buttigieg? And also, by the way, just to let you know, Pete Buttigieg, one of his buddies, got caught with childhood porn, 65, charges apparently, which is a big thing. Do you not know about that?
I did skim through and saw that article, the headline. I haven't looked into it thoroughly yet.
Like I was saying, what is your opinion towards that? Like seeing a disaster in East Ohio and like Biden not visiting it and it potentially being like the worst environmental history, and especially when you have like conspiracy theorists say on a website that the American population is going to go down to something like, maybe 20 million less. Do you think that the East Ohio Palestine issue, like with the reaction that the chemicals are doing and seeing the photos of it like looking like a nuclear bomb and like the damage it's done, do you think that that might be, another plot of the New World Order's plan to like depopularize? And do you think there's going to be a lot of skin cancer rates going up? And how much damage do you think it's going to cause in the future?
So it's a big question mark for me. I haven't looked into it enough to know if it's like, a conspiratorial thing or done on purpose, but I think it's a very good, probably a happy accident for people in positions of power. Our government doesn't care about people in Ohio, especially not the current administration. That's a conservative area. So why would they care about helping out conservatives, the Biden administration? I think it is definitely one of the worst environmental disasters in a long time in the United States. What really blows my mind is that people on the left who claim to be environmentalists are saying it's not a big deal. I don't understand. Like, it's people are having to breathe like toxic chemical clouds. You just look at it. That's not okay. That's not healthy. That's terrible. I'm not surprised that the Biden administration is slow to act. I did think that they would get something out eventually, something like George Bush Jr. was really slow to get FEMA out to help the people in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina many years ago. That was terrible and embarrassing. And I
Oh
guess
yeah,
Joe Biden.
everybody knows that. I remember an episode on
Yeah,
Family Guy where they took. Do you remember an episode of Family Guy where Brian Griffin was looking for George W. That's a funny episode. Anyways, as you're saying.
yeah. I guess Joe Biden wants his standards to be even lower. Like, he's just openly going to be like, screw them. I think that anybody living there needs to go get checked out at the doctor like right away, because they need to start tracking whether or not you're getting symptoms worse and worse. If there's going to be a lawsuit or anything, like, the best thing you could do is start documenting what you're going through like immediately, like yesterday, a week ago. And I have been speaking with some of the other members of the Libertarian Party about trying to do some sort of relief effort. I haven't talked about it much publicly on social media because I don't have anything together yet. But I have asked one of our subcommittees to look into it, and I've spoken with the Libertarian Party of Ohio chair about it as well.
That would be fantastic. By the way, just to let you know, one of Chrissy Mayer's mods called Flakeland Triggers. He's a very cool guy. Shout out to him, by the way. He's actually he was actually on his he does a podcast. He does a group stream of this other guy called Crush Mondo and Front Porch Conservative, and he actually interviewed the residents. Like this one resident about the East Ohio thing, and he's also doing a charity thing, which is very good, and maybe you should speak to him. I think you would, it would be a
Yeah.
cool thing to speak to him. And it's a really good thing that, he's doing, that relief. And I just think, the fact that Biden's not out there and he says he claims about, I mean, it's such a load of crap,
He went
and
to
it's
Ukraine
like,
instead. He went to Ukraine instead. And I get
I
it.
know,
You know
right?
what?
It
Like,
was,
people in Ukraine are suffering. It's horrible that they're basically, in the middle of this stupid fight between Russia and NATO and the United States. But the president of where? The United States, of America. That includes Ohio. It doesn't include Ukraine. Well, like you said, it must be our 51st state.
well, you could argue, someone sent me a private chat. I see, fair enough. Yeah, so Angela, before we finish up, how would you feel if like Julian Assange came to against the wall rally? How would that be for you? Like, because a lot of people predicting he might get the charges dropped. Real
Yeah.
Graceful did a really good, prediction. How would you feel like for him to come to, the rally, and
Oh,
how would how that make you feel?
I mean, that'd be one of the happiest days of my life, because that would mean that he's freed from that, that misery. Like, he's being treated like he's being tortured. Essentially, we got to get that guy out of there. That would be incredible. I would be really happy if Stella would come. I've been messaging with his brother a lot, trying to do everything I can to just raise awareness there. His brother's got a book tour in the United States. His brother's name is Gabriel. I'm trying to see if I can find some information on it. Yeah, I'll post it on the Libertarian Party's discussion list for anybody who wants to try to catch out. Not a book tour, I'm sorry, a film tour.
Well, Angela, since you told me that you need to wrap it up in a few minutes, I think we should wrap it up now. Where can people find you?
If you're interested in the Libertarian Party, you can find out more about us at lp.org. You can find me on Twitter at Angela4LNC Chair. And if you want to see the stuff that I'm working on behind the scenes with the Libertarian Party, you can go to patreon.com/Angela McArdle. I'm on Substack and Locals too.
Well, thank you for coming on, Angela. It was a pleasure having you. You know, I really think that rally you did was brilliant. It was wonderful. And everybody, please go and subscribe to Angela. Go check out her work. She does a fantastic job with the Libertarian Party. She does a really good job. It's a great rally. You should go on YouTube or Odyssey or whatever, see all the rallies, you know. And the truth is, folks, let's not forget, you know, the war machine, it doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right or you're in the middle. We're all against it. It's a common enemy we all share. So everyone, please go like and subscribe to her, you know, channels and her Twitter. And please remember, everybody, my main YouTube account, of course, has been taken down because of some stupid things. But I've got a backup channel now called Welsh Republic 2, which is now my main channel on YouTube. And I'm going to be using my Rumble node from now on. So please, everybody, remember to like and subscribe. Have a nice day, everybody. Take care. God bless you all. Bye.